Hello and welcome back to part 2 of What If a Billionaire Invested in Andorra. This time we've gone 10 years in the future from last episode, and as we'll see in a minute, there's been a bit of domination if we're going to be honest with ourselves. First of all though, let's have a look at the Andorran national team just briefly. As you can see, they've climbed up to 125th in the world rankings now, so they're close to the top 100 for their first time ever. In fact, 125th could be their highest ever world ranking. If we look, 117th was their highest ever. They dropped down to as low as 189th actually in the mid-2025s. Now in 2032, they're up to 125th in the world, which is pretty good going, I think. By the looks of things though, they're still only beating the teams like San Marino and other teams at their level, Gibraltar, Latvia, beating those teams, which are quite nice. Montenegro getting the better of them, but at least they're starting to do something now. They're starting to win a few more games other than just the teams that are around them. Beating a few teams, Faroe Islands obviously the ones they're always beating, Kazakhstan are starting to beat them now and things like that. So it's good to see that Andorra national team are starting to get better and starting to win a couple more games now. If we look at their senior squad then, the best player is this guy, Fidalgo Castro, 90 rated current ability, 123 potential, but he's 25 years old, so he's not going to reach that potential now. He's past that now, so 80 is probably going to be where he's capped at. If we sort it by age instead, there's a few decent young players coming through. This guy, Gonzalo Olivia, at 19 years old, has a potential of 98, so that's pretty good. He's probably going to reach that, I'd imagine, for Sant Julia at some point. Javier Munoz down here at 79 current ability, but at 21 years old will probably reach that 99 potential as well, so he's pretty close to getting there. There's a few decent young players coming through. If we look at the under-21 squad and look at just potential ability instead, this guy, Ezekiel Mina, could get to 97 potential if he plays pretty well. That could be quite good. We're starting to get a few decent Andorran players coming through now. If we can start to break into that 100 potential ability, that'd be pretty decent. Of course, more good regens are starting to come through now, because last time we did give them an extra £1 million and we boosted everyone's facilities to top facilities, so they've got the best chance of producing some really good young players coming through. Lusitans, obviously, with the team that we identified last time as the best one. We were a bit confused last time about what they'd done and why there's so much Portuguese referencing in them and why there's so many good Portuguese players when they're playing Andorra. But apparently, I've done some research and a few guys in the comments have told me as well that apparently Lusitans are basically formed from Portuguese migrants to Andorra, and thus they keep quite a strong Portuguese heritage within their side, so they do tend to have quite a lot of Portuguese players rather than Andorran players, which is why we've seen quite a few good ones come through. What you can also see is they've absolutely dominated the league for the past 10 years, as you can see, winning absolutely every league title for the past 10 years. So we'll have a look at the Andorran First Division, although there's not really much to show you because Lusitans have won it every single season, as you can see from the past history here. They've risen to 85th in the world rankings though, which is pretty decent. 85th most reputable league in Europe. Were at a high of 79th actually 2 seasons ago, but have dropped down since then, which does suggest that perhaps there's been a bit of poor showing in European performances since then. I would show you the table, but literally Lusitans have won it every single year, and it's always the same teams coming second and third, picking up those European places. So Lusitans, of course, winning it every single year, but it seems to go in stages with who comes second. Urgendy came second for a little bit, but then Sant Julia took over for a few years, and our Rangers have suddenly become the best or second best team in Andorra for a little while before Santa Coloma come out after finishing third for a few seasons. So there's sort of little phases going on between second and third. If we look at the rules of the competition though, have any more European competitions been added, or European qualification I should say, and by looks of things it hasn't actually. The top team still qualifies for the Champions League first qualifying phase, and the second to fourth still qualify for Euro Cup first qualifying round, depending on the winner of the Andorran Cup, which we'll look at now as well. If there's been different winners here, we may have a look at a few of these different clubs, but as I presumed, Lusitans have won it nearly every single year, and if they haven't, it's been either Santa Coloma or Rangers winning it, and they're the teams that come second or third most of the time in the league. So quite a lot of domination going on in Andorra at the moment. Similar story in the Andorran second division with Lusitans B winning it every single season, which means that they can't get promoted because they're a B team, so whoever comes second gets promoted. So a lot of these teams sort of bouncing up and down, Principat bouncing up and down, Athletic Escaldas being bouncing up and down a little bit as well, they've been promoted a few times, Genlai as well. It's these same sort of teams that are just bouncing up and down a little bit. Urgendy finishing down in runners-up position there. That's interesting. Let's look at their history. They've been up and down because they came second for a little bit. Then had the dramatic demise, got relegated but got promoted straight away again, and now they're bouncing around the first division a little bit. That's a weird little run they've got going on there. Let's look at the Lusitans team then. Of course, unfortunately, there's no Andorran players in this at all, which is it's almost defeats the point of the experiment in a way. But they do have some really, really good young players coming through. This guy, Julia Morena, coming through, 107 current ability, 173 potential at 17 years old. He's going to be a big star in the future. We identified last time there was one really good young player coming from Lusitans, and he's had a decent career actually. Emmanuel Baroa now currently plays for Atletico Madrid. That's how good he is, to be fair, because we saw last time he had a potential of 170 odd, so we thought, oh, he's going to be quite a good player. He spent most of his career actually at Lusitans, which you could argue is probably wasted before moving to Sporting for £75,000. Spent 2.5 seasons there before moving to Atletico Madrid for £17 million. So quite the career and rise in price he's had, to be fair, but there's no wonder he's only bought for £75,000 because the Andorran division is so far down in rankings. The players there just aren't worth anything. Incredibly though, if you ignore these first 2 seasons, they weren't full seasons. I guess that one wasn't a full season either. But every season that he's played, a vast majority of the games, he's got over a 7.0 rating, which is, quite frankly, incredible for a player's career. So he's obviously played very well. So I predict this guy, Julian Morena, could probably have a similar career. Part of the reason that they won't have reached these potentials is because they are playing in Andorra. Although they've got really good facilities, the competition in the league just isn't up to scratch, really. So they're going to struggle to improve playing against inferior opposition. It's time to see though if any money has actually been paid. Last time we only saw a fee of, I think it was 125k was the only fee that we saw paid in last episode, and already that fee has been trumped in the first season. £185,000 paid by, of course, Lusitans for a player from Brazil. But not many players coming in from foreign leagues. Most of the transfers are still into Andorra, and there was a few players leaving actually, like this guy goes to Panathinaikos for free from Lusitans, but other than that it's mostly just into transfers between Andorran sides. The next season though, Lusitans spend a big 1.4 million on a player from Tigre, which I presume are a Mexican side, an Argentinian side. They paid 1.4 million for Pablo Minci, who is now at Huracan. Did he have a decent career at Lusitans? To be fair, he had a very, very good career, really, really good ratings throughout. His lowest rating is a 7.39 or 7.37, so that kind of shows how good his career was, so he's probably worth that kind of money. As we skip forward though, there's no massive transfers after that actually. You know, there's more clubs starting to spend money now, but they're not huge amounts of money, and actually a lot of these transfers are now starting to leave. 2 of these players leaving for big sums of money from Lusitans actually. Going forward once again though, still nothing huge being spent. We did put an extra 100 million into these clubs, but it's going to be hard for them to spend it because no one's going to want to move to Andorra because it's such a division down for everyone. And of course, a lot of these players want to start playing in the French divisions or the Spanish divisions instead. So it's a bit difficult for them to start to get these players in. However, in the season we've just had, the record transfer fee has been smashed. Bruno Torres comes in from Newell's to Lusitans for 2 million, rising to 2.5 million. Is he any good though? Looking at this, he's not worth that kind of money, really, if you look at his stats. He's very young, has probably got a lot of potential. If we have a look at his edit player attribute details, that's not the right, is that one? His current ability is 105, but he's got potential of 149, so he could turn out to be a pretty decent player. Speaking of Lusitans then, let's have a look what they've done the past few seasons in European competitions. If we go back to the 2022-23 season, the first one that we simulated, and we'll get rid of all these other competitions that we don't want to see. Right, they got to the Champions League first qualifying leg, won on away goals, but then didn't go into anything, which confuses me. Oh, they didn't win on away goals. I'm talking nonsense. They lost on away goals. They went to the Euro Cup second qualifying round, won that, but then lost to Lech Poznan in the third qualifying round, so that was a bit unfortunate for them. Season afterwards, a similar story, getting knocked out of that first qualifying phase, then get through to the third qualifying round in the Euro Cup once again, but this time knocked out by CSK Sofia. Season afterwards, once again knocked out in that first qualifying round, but they get through a few of the Euro Cup rounds actually before they come up against Panathinaikos in the Euro Cup fourth qualifying, the last one before the group stages, and unfortunately lose 4-2 on aggregate. Season afterwards though, blimey, they do pretty well this year. This time they do get through the Champions League qualifying round and they get through into the second qualifying round, but lose 2-0 on aggregate. Come up against Welsh side TNS in the Euro Cup, the third qualifying round, beat them 10-0 on aggregate, and then do the same thing in the fourth qualifying round to get them into the Europa League Group G, where they face Vitesse, Villarreal and SK Rapid Wien, and actually do manage to beat Villarreal 3-2 and draw with SK Rapid Wien. However, that wouldn't be enough to get them through into the knockout stages, but that's a decent result, that is. That's a fantastic season. The first Andorran side to get into Europa League or any European competition group stages, so that is a season to remember, the 25-26 season. Season afterwards though, they couldn't replicate it. They get to the Euro Cup fourth qualifying round, but lose to Lechia Warsaw, so unfortunately there, a bit of a tough one. They had some decent teams to come up against in those earlier rounds, so they did pretty well actually to get that far. 27-28 season, not in anything, so I presume some sort of financial difficulties came about there, although we've been very slow with introducing money to these sides, so I'm not quite sure what would have gone wrong there. Season afterwards though, they get through the first qualifying round of the Champions League against Cliftonville, lose to Copenhagen though in the second qualifying round, Come up against Cliftonville once again, beat them once again, but then lose to Vitesse in the Euro Cup 4th qualifying round just before the group stages once again. 29-30 season, once again, they starting to get through these initial qualifying rounds of the Champions League, but lose to Partizan in the 2nd qualifying round, which puts them in the 3rd qualifying round for the Euro Cup, but unfortunately, once again, lose just before the group stages. So they're on the cusp of the group stages just about every single time of the Europa League, but just can't get there. 2030-31 season, not the best one actually. They managed to get through that first qualifying phase, but then come against Ludogorets, lose to them, and then lose to Hammarby as well in the Euro Cup 3rd qualifying round. So that's their worst season for quite a while actually. And then the season we have just had, the one we've just simulated, they get through once again to that 4th qualifying round, but lose to Malmo. So they're on the cusp of European group stages every single season just about, but just can't quite get there. We'll have a look through FC Santa Coloma as well and see what they've done. They're a team that's sort of come 2nd, 3rd a couple seasons. As you can see though, not doing very well in these first few seasons, and actually I'm just going to skip through it closely. So if they're not in it, then they're not in it some seasons. But when they are in it, they just seem to lose in that Europa League 1st qualifying round. This season, in the 29-30 season, they do manage to get through into the 2nd qualifying round, but lose 3-0 to AGF, which is not the best result for them, but it's the first they've got actually. So they should be praised for that, I'd imagine. 30-31 season, nothing. And then the season we just had, once again out in that 1st qualifying round. So quite poor for FC Santa Coloma. Had high hopes for them, but they've not lived up to it. Let's look at Rangers then. They had quite a little run actually of coming 2nd in the league for quite a few seasons. However though, back to the 2022-23 season, not doing very well, getting knocked out in that 1st qualifying round. Similar sort of things to Santa Coloma here as we skip forward. 1st qualifying round nearly every time. I guess this season will be the season Lusitanz had that issue with financial fair play or something. So they get put into the Champions League but lose to Celtic in that 1st qualifying round. Get put into the Europa League 2nd qualifying round and beat TNS. They win the 1st leg of their 3rd qualifying round but lose in the 2nd leg, which knocks them out. So that's the furthest we've seen any other side apart from Lusitanz go. Season afterwards, we get to the 2nd qualifying round but lose to Guingamp. That's a pretty tough draw actually. And as we come forward once again, not doing much. Wolfsburg beat them in the Euro Cup 2nd qualifying round there. And the season we just had, they get to the 2nd qualifying round once again, but Maccabi Hafif have managed to defeat them this time. So at least they're starting to get a bit further than Santa Coloma are, for example, Rangers, but still no one's close to Lusitanz right now. The last club we'll look at then is Sant Julia. They also came 2nd for quite a few seasons in a row, but by looks of things, they're probably going to have a similar story to the other teams, losing in the Euro Cup 1st qualifying round as they have done in this 1st season. Carrying forward, they are literally on the same trajectory as the other teams. Every season, losing in that Euro Cup 1st qualifying round to various different teams and never actually getting anywhere close to getting through. They're always absolutely thrashing. From looking back now, they've not come close once. In fact, they've barely scored any goals in it. So Sant Julia have a lot of work to do coming forward. That's unfortunate, to be fair. I thought we would have seen a little bit more improvement and a slightly better teams, but unfortunately, it's just not happened for them. Right, between this episode and next episode then, I think what we're going to do is put some more money into the clubs. I'm thinking that perhaps the only way these clubs are really going to make strides of improvement in these European competitions now is by artificially increasing their reputation, which someone actually said, if a billionaire did actually invest in these competitions and these clubs, then the reputations of them would increase massively actually. So perhaps it would make sense to increase reputations off the bat a little bit. However, I do think that because we started off not increasing reputation, it's going to become a last resort kind of thing to see some sort of improvement. So I think for next episode, we'll make sure everyone's got top facilities still. We'll put some more money into the clubs and we'll see what happens for another 10 years or so. And then after that, if really nothing has happened, that's probably when we're going to start to look at increasing reputation. If you've enjoyed today's episode, then make sure you do drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel for more Football Manager action just like this, and I'll see you next time for some more Billionaire action.